Get behind them.
Wait.
Oh my god, I just shit on all of them, bro. Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to talk about some underrated settings that I think can actually make a pretty large impact on your gameplay. Typically, when people talk about settings, they just mention things like sensitivity and keybinds, but we're going to go over some of the more miscellaneous settings, like auto open doors, auto sort consumables to the right, and tap to search/edit, 3D headset, things like that. If you do find this video helpful or informative, please do remember to give it a like and subscribe if you would like to see more. I post Fortnite content pretty regularly on this channel and stream every morning on Twitch, which will be linked down in the description below. So we're actually going to start out with the 3D headset option, and this setting was added at the start of chapter 2, I believe, and many players just avoid it completely because the description of it says that it's best used with stereo headsets, and most people look at stereo headsets as a downgrade over surround sound headsets, which they are. But I think the description of this setting is incorrect, and it actually makes the directional audio much better. And I feel like I've never understood Fortnite audio better than once I switched to this setting, which I switched to at the start of chapter 2. I've also gotten many of my friends to switch over to this setting, and once they've put in the time and gotten used to it, they also think it's much better for locating players, especially like when dealing with verticality. So like if you're late game and a lot of people are tunneled or like boxed up in different varying levels of verticality, you might have a team 2 layers above you and then have a team down and to your right, and being able to distinguish all this audio and actually locate those players and understand what all that audio means, I feel like it's just so much easier and it's so much more natural on the 3D headset setting once you get used to it. Does sound a little weird at first because it's not what you're used to, but I would say after like 30 minutes or so, you'll probably notice that this setting makes the game sound a lot better. So I would definitely recommend trying out the 3D headset option. Next things I want to talk about are 2 things that are going to help you with your off spawn fights and like when you 50-50 chests. So the first thing is going to be auto sort consumables to the right, and this is a feature that I never really actually used because I don't put my heals in the last slot, and because that's typically where I put my AR, since if you're taking walls on controller and you swap, you'll swap to your shotgun first after taking the wall. So I always just put my shotgun first, my AR last, and then my SMG second. And so auto sort consumables to the right really didn't make sense to me personally. But the reason why I started using this is if you 50-50 a chest, or if you're opening a chest while someone's trying to pickaxe you, and you pick up the healing item and the gun, if you pick up the healing item first, you're going to have to swap twice to get to the gun. And if you don't immediately realize that, you might start using the healing item while the person is pickaxing you. And then you're basically just dead because you get stuck in that animation and you have to like jump to get out of it. And by the time you realize what's going on, that guy's probably gotten 3 extra pickaxe swings at you. And if he was swinging at it before you even opened the chest, then you're probably just dead outright. If you have auto sort consumables to the right on, the gun will always go in slot 1 and the heal will go in slot 5. So you'll always just be able to swap once, be on your gun, and eliminate that player trying to pickaxe you. And I know this sounds incredibly specific, but pretty much whenever I land, if there's people in the area, they try to land on me and pickaxe me for whatever reason. If I go Holly Hedges, Salty Springs, this happens a lot. For whatever reason, people really like trying to land on people and pickaxe. And it isn't just me that has noticed this. When I watch my friends' streams, they encounter this a lot as well. So for whatever reason, the Fortnite community has just gotten to the point where they always try to pickaxe people off spawn, and auto sort consumables to the right really like helps with that. It also might help if you get 2 things out of a chest and maybe one of them's an AR and you want to beam somebody while they're in air. Just cutting down these little fractions of a delay might really help you in those situations. The next setting also helps with 50-50ing chest, and that's going to be tap to search/interact. Not only does this just make it a little bit easier since you don't have to hold the button the entire time, like it's a little simpler, but it's also really nice for getting your timing down when 50-50ing a chest. Because if you don't have this setting on, you have to hold the interact key until the chest is open and then spam the interact key to try to pick up the weapon. But if you have tap to search on, you can just repetitively spam the button throughout this entire process, and then pretty much as soon as the weapon comes out, you have it in your inventory. You're already pre-spamming interact because you only had to tap it in the first place, and you don't really have to time anything properly at all. Like when I'm opening a chest, I'm just spam tapping X constantly if I think someone's like also trying to get the same loot. And just know that the gun always comes out of the chest on the right side. So if you look at the right side of the chest, you should pretty much always be able to grab the gun before the other person, if you're spam tapping search before the chest is even open. That's what I do. So tap to search / interact and auto sort consumables to the right are both really good settings at winning some of those 50-50 off spawn fights, which for whatever reason a lot of players opt into these days. Even if you land before them, they try to force it upon you. So winning those fights can definitely help you out and just make your life a lot easier. You get a free kill off spawn, which is nice. And if you're playing something like Arena or a Cup, that's 50 shield off spawn that you just got for yourself plus mats. So it's definitely worth winning those fights. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be the To Nop colorblind setting. There's been lots of different colorblind settings that have been useful for various reasons throughout Fortnite. To Nop is best for finding llamas. I don't really understand exactly how these colorblind settings work, but from my best guess, the To Nop setting just amplifies bright colors. It doesn't really seem to change anything else that much at all if you like look at it and like turn it off and on and just see what it changes. It doesn't really seem to change much, but bright colors seem to pop more and seem even more bright and more vibrant. And this is really good for finding llamas because the llama is made entirely of bright colors. So you put To Nop on, it's a little easier for you to spot llamas at range. So if you're just walking around the map, it's easier to find them, but it's also really nice because it's easier to see them while you're landing off spawn. If there's any llamas in your area, you can see them and then go for them. I'd recommend marking the llama while you're in air because then you'll know if someone else goes to it. The mark will expire after some amount of time, but if it hasn't been that long and the mark expires, then you know someone else took the llama. And finding a llama is obviously really good off spawn because it's a lot of mats. You can save time farming, or you can put those mats towards upgrading a weapon, and there's a guaranteed launch pad out of every llama, so they're actually really valuable. And if you have one near your landing location, you don't want to miss it. I personally forget to look for them a lot, and I just happen to notice them really often with this setting if they're in my area. So To Nop is definitely a colorblind setting that I would recommend, and like I said before, it doesn't really change the way the game looks that much at all. So if you're someone that just wants Fortnite to look like Fortnite, you can still use this setting and get the effectiveness out of it. I use To Nop on level 7, but you can go higher if you want to. But that's when the game does start to look slightly different with this colorblind setting. So I just use it at 7. The final settings I want to talk about are both for controller. So if you're a keyboard player, these won't really apply to you, but they both go to just make your controller more responsive. And these settings are dead zones and foot controller. So lots of you may know what these things do, newer players might not. Dead zones are basically just how much you have to move the analog stick for movement to actually take place in game. So you're setting an area of your analog stick that is a quote-unquote dead zone where no responsiveness happens. And this is in the game to combat stick drift. I would recommend putting the dead zones as low as you can before you get stick drift. So until your character starts moving on his own, if you put them down all the way, your character will likely start moving on his own. And that's because as we use these controllers, wear and tear happens on them, and they're not perfect. So they break down over time and become like less and less precise. So you don't really want to copy anyone's dead zones because everybody's controller is unique to them. Like I said, you just want to put it as low as you can until you get stick drift. And then once you get stick drift, you want to put it up a little bit. That way you're no longer getting that stick drift. So yeah, put them as low as you can until you get stick drift and then go up from there. The next setting is going to be foot controller, and this basically works to eliminate aim acceleration, which is how much of your response curve has a low sensitivity. You can check out my video on exponential versus linear if you want more descriptions of these response curves. But if you play on linear, the entire point of doing so is that that low response curve is pretty much non-existent, and you have your max or your good sensitivity just right away. And if you have foot controller on, that does that basically. So like linear maybe does 95% of eliminating aim acceleration, and then foot controller eliminates like the final 5%. So if you play on linear, I would recommend turning foot controller on and then putting both the settings at 1%. Note that if you do play on Xbox One, at the time I'm recording this, foot controller is not an option for whatever reason. But if you play on PC or PS4, then you have an option for foot controller. And if you play on linear settings, I would recommend putting it on with both settings at 1%. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found it helpful. Like I said, these are some underrated settings that aren't really talked about as much that I think can actually make a pretty big deal in your gameplay. So I wanted to go over them in this video. If you did find it helpful, remember to give it a like, subscribe, and like I said, my Twitch is linked down in the description below. So make sure you check that out, and I will see you guys another time. Thanks for watching.